What's up everyone, I'm IAMOBG for tastingskills.com. So, you want to get some more whiskey born? Did you catch the 2 previous episodes that I just did on American whiskey and on single malt? Well, if you haven't, there's a link up here for the American one. And the link to the other one is down there. Now today we're doing my favorite category, and that would be the Japanese whiskey category. Now all of these whiskeys just finished at auction at whiskeyauctioneer.com. There's a link below if you want to see everything that I'm talking about. Otherwise, let's jump into it. Now, our first whiskey today is the Yamazaki 18-year-old limited edition. Now, this has an ABV of 43, and this whiskey came out into the market in 1992. Now, this is 80% sherry butt matured whiskey, and the remainder is Japanese Mizunara oak and American oak. Now, this one sold for only $1,500. Now, I know that this is difficult to understand, but in the US, you can't find this under $2,000. Then we have the Hanyu 1991, the nectar of the daily drams, 19-year-old red oak heads. Now, this distillery closed in 2000, and this is rapidly becoming the most sought out single malt. Now, the nectar is an independent bottler. Yes, it's based in Belgium, and this bottle sold for $1,750. And I can promise you that this is just gonna keep rising as they bottle some crazy stuff out there. Then we have the Shinsu Mars 1991 Astronomical Observation, 24-year-old sherry cask. Now, this distillery stopped producing whiskey in 1992 and started again in 2011. But this is some serious shit, as this one is bottle 1 of only 375. And this has an ABV of 59 or a proof of 118, meaning it's at cask strength. And this sold for a whopping $2,100, but oh my God. Did you see that packaging? That is so sweet. Ah, God, I love that. All right, let's move on to the Hanyu 1991 Ichiro's Malt Single Cask. Now, once again, this distillery has been closed since 2000, and this is a single cask offering at an ABV of 58.2. So there's not much out there, and this bad boy sold for $2,150. Then we're getting into some serious distillery here. The Karuzawa Spirits of Assam, ABV 48. This is what you can only dream of, since this distillery opened in 1955 and closed in 2001. Now, when we talk about the greatest distilleries of Japan, well, this is right up there. And you'll see why. Now, this one only sold for $2,500. Now, you may think that this is expensive, but as we go down this rabbit hole, you'll see that this was a real steal. Then we're gonna stay with the Kurosawa Distillery. There is a bottle of the 1999, the last bottling of 14-year-old Isetan Shinjuku. Now, Isetan is a department store, and this was the last release bottled by Karuzawa, and this is a cask strength at 60.5. Now, this sold for $3,900, and I can promise you that this is only going to go up. Now, staying with that crazy distillery, we have the Karuzawa 1994 full-proof single cask produced from an ex-Glenlivet sherry butt, which only yield 204 bottle, and this is bottle 140. Now, this again is some crazy stuff. This has an ABV of 61, and this one sold for $4,600, but look at that packaging. Are you kidding me? Just wow, ahead of its time. Now, there was a Yamazaki lot, of course, of the 2020 horizontal, so let's jump into it so you can see that whole lineup. The first one is the Yamazaki Bordeaux Wine Cask 2020 edition. This has an ABV of 48. Then there's the Yamazaki Punch On 2020 edition, again ABV 48. Then the Yamazaki Peated Malt 2020 edition, 48 ABV. Then we have the Yamazaki Spanish Oak 2020 edition, again 48 ABV. And finally, the Yamazaki Mizunara Japanese Oak Cask 2020, and this has an ABV, you guessed it, of 48. Now, this sold for $15,500, and that means that that's about $3,100 a bottle. And you would think, like, OBG, this is 2020 release. Like, who is buying that at $3,100 a bottle? Well, if you go right now into the market and you try to actually find one bottle of each of those, well, you'll easily pay between $3,000 to $5,000 depending on which one you want. So this is actually a steal, which is just crazy. But let's get into what everybody really wants, and that would be the Ichiro's Malt Card. His finest achievement will surely always be considered the Hanyu card series. The bottle is a collection of only 58 released, each displaying one of 52 playing cards on the label, 2 jokers, and a second batch to follow up the release of the original 2005 Ace of Spade, Queen of Hearts, King of Diamond, and Jack of Clubs bottling, each unique in its own right. This is an important moment in history for Japanese whiskey. Now, if you are a geek, this is what everybody dorks out on. And the first one is the Hanyu 2003 of Hearts. Now, this was bottled in 2010 and it was matured in a hogshead and then finished in a port pipe. This is bottled 406 out of only 807 ever produced. This has an ABV of 61.2 and this one sold for a whopping $6,000. Then the second one is the Hanyu Ichiro's Malt Card 8 of Clubs. Now, this was distilled in 1988 and bottled in 2011 from cask 7100. This was aged in a hogshead once again and then finished in American oak punch on. And this bottle is number 277 out of 561 ever produced, and this one sold for $10,500. Then we have the Hanyu 1986 Ichiro's Malt Card King of Heart. Now, this was one, of course, distilled in 86 and bottled in 2009. This is aged in a hogshead and then finished in a Pedro Jimenez sherry butt. And this bottle is number 431 of only 444 ever made. This had an ABV of 55.4 and this sold for a whopping $14,000. Then we have the 1991 Ichiro's Malt Card 8 of Diamonds. Now, this was distilled in 1991 and bottled in 2009. And this is aged in a hogshead once again and then finished in a Oloroso sherry butt. Now, this bottle is number 103 of only 595 ever produced. This has an ABV of 57.1 and this one sold for $17,000. And finally, we have the Ichiro's Malt Card, and this one is a Hanyu 2003 of Spades. This was distilled in 2000 and bottled in 2007, and this was aged again in a hogshead and then finished in American oak hogshead. Now, this is bottle 53 of only 354, and this has an ABV of 57, and this one sold for $17,000. Then we have something special. We have the Karuzawa 1970 single cask. Now, this is a limited release. This was distilled in 1970 and bottled on October 3rd, 2011. This is cask 1985 and this has an ABV of 59.1. This one sold for $21,000. And then finally, we have some Karuzawa 1965. Now, there was 3 bottles of them that went up to auction this week, and 2 of them did not meet reserve. And at a respective $72,000 and $60,000, the reserve wasn't even met. That's how crazy these whiskey are. But we did see a bottle of Karuzawa 1965 single sherry cask, 50-year-old. Now, this is bottled 238 of only 300 ever produced. This is from a sherry cask number 2372, and this was produced for La Maison du Whisky in Paris. That is a well-known seller, retailer of whiskey. This has an ABV of 62.3 and this one sold for a whopping $56,000. Now, as you can see, if you are a whiskey dork, Japanese whiskey is where it's at. That is just my personal opinion. Now, if you did like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share, tell all your friends, leave a comments below. I will be living down there. Otherwise, if you want to catch the previous episode, you can just click on the link right here. If you want to subscribe, you can click on the link right there. Otherwise, my friend, please remember, stay sober. Peace.